Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It is Sunday morning, which means it is the beginning of week 3 for clearursht, and the prompts went up a while ago, but I'm just checking them for the first time. Does anybody else get the sneezes when they wake up in the morning? Every day. Okay, where was I? Oh, so the prompts are up for clearursht. And if you want to see how week 1 and week 2 has gone, I will link those vlogs down below. I'm currently reading one book that is a carryover from last week. I'm still reading Out There Screaming, which is fulfilling the AIR collective prompt, which is to read a book with multiple perspectives. But I can't just read a short story anthology. I have to have a main book, and then this is like my side book. So the next prompt is mini boss, which means I have to pick a prompt based on what my strengths are. So at the beginning of clearursht, there were these little character birth charts that we got to fill out, and I'm going to show you my reading journal. I tried to do a tip-in for the first time and I didn't do it great, but I'm not going to fix it. I'm just going to leave it in here so I can remember that I didn't do it great the next time. Also, please remember that I am not artistic, so anyways, this is not generally for public viewing. But here is my clearursht page in my reading journal, and this is my little tip in. So here is my birth chart, and you did your name, and then there were, on the Instagram post for this, there were listed out how you picked your strength sun, your weakness moon, and then your weapon rising. So the one that I slotted into for strength sun was book realist. So that's going to be how I find out what this prompt is for the mini boss. So for book realist, your choice. Read your shortest book or your longest book. All right, let's see what the contenders are for that. Right now for clearursht, I am pulling from my end of the year TBR. I will link that video down below as well if you haven't seen it yet. And my shortest book that's on my end of the year TBR for November is The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. And I have only read her children's books. I've read the Cat Wings series, but I haven't read any of her adult writing before. And then the longest book on the TBR is Witch King by Martha Wells. This is the Illumicrate edition. And I also have this on audio from Libro FM. Ooh, the end pages are so pretty. Sometimes I forget to check the end pages. Yo, isn't that pretty? I love it so much. Anyways, I'm not sure which one I'm going to pick. I think I might read the first few pages of both of them and then pick from there. told you what book I was starting with yesterday. I think shortly after I recorded that last clip of me talking, my kids all woke up for the day, and then, we were going for the day. So there wasn't time to circle back around. I ended up starting The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is a science fiction novella that I believe she won a Hugo Award for at some point. I don't know when. And this is her response to the Vietnam War, and it's a little denser than I typically reach for. So even though it's short, it's not a fast read. I'm really having to take my time and pay attention to all the words. It came out in 1976, just to give you an idea. But I ended up picking it because I was reading the introduction, and in the first paragraph of the introduction says, written in the glare of the United States war on Indochina and first published as a separate book in that war's dire aftermath, The Word for World is Forest is a reflection on invasion, exploitation, and oppression, and on the necessity and cost of resistance. And I thought, given everything going on with Ukraine and Russia and Gaza and Palestine and Israel, I don't know, I just felt like the right moment to read a book that's talking about war and invasion and occupation. I don't even know that I can give you a synopsis yet. It takes place on another world, and the inhabitants of this other world have been enslaved by what they call the humans, but are basically humans. And the humans society is very patriarchal, very like white supremacist, all the things that we already have. And then the people from this world are a lot more peaceful, are bound to nature. You can kind of see where it's going. So I'll keep you updated as I go. But right now I am doing reading sprints, and I'm alternating a chapter of this with a short story from Out There Screaming. The chapters for the Ursula K. Le Guin are pretty long. It takes me about 25 minutes to read a chapter, which is about what these sprints are. It's the Pomodoro timers. And then for Out There Screaming, what have I read? I finally finished the Nalo Hopkinson story, which had more body horror than I was ready for. And then I guess I'm not as far as I thought. I read the Norwood Trouble. Oh yeah, okay, I read the Norwood Trouble. I'm paying attention. I am. I promise. That one was more historical fiction horror. And now I'm just starting A Grief of the Dead, and I've literally read a page of it, so I have no idea what that one's about. I don't know how alternating between these two, reading a chapter of this, reading a short story, reading a chapter, reading a short story, I don't know that that's my best idea I've ever had, but that's what I'm doing. It's actually sunny outside and not too cold, so I'm thinking I'm going to walk to go pick up my youngest, which means I need an audiobook. So we're gonna do that together right now. Let's see what the next prompt is. So the next prompt is Taurus. Read a book with an aesthetically pleasing cover. Oh, that's a nice prompt. I like that prompt. But I need an audiobook. So we're gonna go look at my audiobook stuff to see what looks good. It's not on my TBR. Surprise, surprise. But I am gonna start the audio for Under the Smoke Strewn Sky. This is A. Deborah Baker, aka Shauna McGuire. This is book 4 in the Up and Under series, I think is what it's called. It's also the conclusion to this little novella series. This series was inspired by Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, because there's this series of children's books exists in that universe. After Middle Game came out, Shauna McGuire started to write these children's books that exist, and they are adult novellas, but written in the style of dark fairy tales and children's books. And I would agree that this is not for everyone. I think you really have to like the traditional fairy tale format, like a Grimm's or a Hans Christian Andersen, where there is going to be a moral. These children are going to learn lessons as the story progresses. I think Shauna McGuire's writing is always really beautiful, but I really love this world that she's created, and I really love Finn and Avery. Gosh, it's been so long. Oh, Zib and Avery, that's what it is. So I really love the dynamic those two characters have together, and just, yeah. So I'm going to go with this one. I'm kind of sad. The series is going to be over. I have to finish it at some point. That's what we're going to listen to on our walk today. I will keep you updated. Alright, this isn't an official reading update. This is just like a mini reading update for Out There Screaming, because I've made a little bit of progress. I did DNF one. I DNF'd A Grief of the Dead by Ryan Almacar Scott because I just couldn't keep up with what was going on. It's stream of consciousness narration. There's very little punctuation. There's commas and periods, and you know that, but author doesn't use quotation marks, and it's first person POV, and I was maybe like 5 pages in before I realized our narrator was a man and not a woman, and I had just assumed for some reason that it was a woman, and so I just I just was very confused and did not know what was going on, so I DNF'd that one. And then I read Bird Sings by the Etching Tree by Nicole D. Oh, I don't know how to say her last name. I'll put it here. And that one was really good. That one was excellent. I really enjoyed that one. And now I'm on to An American Fable by Chesia Burke. And Spotify apparently is doing audiobook now in premium. Like, I know that a little while ago they launched audiobooks, but you had to pay for them outside of Spotify, and like, why would I do that? I already pay for Spotify, but then I also pay for Libro FM, and I pay for Scribd, which is now Everand, which, can I just say, I really hate that rebranding. I mean, it's just, I don't know who's on their marketing team, but I feel like they need a new marketing team. Anyways, so I pay for Spotify Premium, and I was on today, and Spotify was like, hey, you get X amount of listening hours a month if you have Spotify Premium. And so I went to see if they had the audiobook for Out There Screaming, because I don't want to pay for the audiobook, but the wait for Libby is super long, and I've already maxed out on Scribd or Everand, what I can listen to. And I only don't want to pay for an audiobook because I am not going to reread this. And so it feels silly to spend a credit on something that I'm not going to reread. Anyways, the audiobook for Out There Screaming is on Spotify, and I can listen to it. So I jumped to the story I'm on. I'm going to put on my headphones and do some chores and listen to this next story. And I don't know, how do we feel about Spotify trying to be an audiobook company? Basically, I don't know. What are our thoughts? How do we feel? I don't know. I obviously need more outlets for where to find audiobooks, because I max out Everand so fast every month, and there are really long wait times for my library on Libby, and I only get 1 credit a month with Libro. I like that there are audiobooks available on a service that I already pay for. I would love to know what you think of Spotify getting in on the audiobook game. Look at me, finishing books like it's my job. I wish it was my job. Okay, I finished The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Guin. This was not an easy read. This was also not a fun read. We are on another world in this that humans have colonized, basically, and enslaved the native inhabitants of. And there's a lot of misogyny in this one.
a lot of patriarchy, a lot of racism, bigotry, colonization. Just it's all bad. It's all horrible. This feels so relevant now, 50-ish years later. Le Guin was writing this in response to the Vietnam War, but I think you can read this and you can apply it to what is going on with Palestine and Israel, what is going on with Russia and Ukraine, what is going on with the U.S. and Puerto Rico, how the U.S. has treated Hawaii. Like, it's depressing because it really highlights how humanity does not learn from our history. So I don't love that. It's a tough read, and it's sad and pretty depressing and frustrating, but I think probably also valuable. I would also be really interested. I was listening to a podcast that was discussing this, but I'd be interested in finding a discussion from the perspective of people of color, because while I think Le Guin makes a lot of really great points, she is still a white woman, or was a white woman, writing about colonization and occupation. And, the native inhabitants of this planet are clearly modeled after Vietnamese people. And so, yeah, I don't know that I'm going to rate it, because I don't even know how to rate this, because I feel like if I rate it on enjoyment, then I undercut the messaging. And, Le Guin is not subtle about her messaging in this. And I would also say the characters there's not a lot of depth to them. I feel like the human that is the catalyst for the events of this book, like, he doesn't feel like a three-dimensional character. He feels very two-dimensional, but on the other hand, he also feels very MAGA in his behavior and in his thoughts and in his prejudices. So it's like, on the one hand, it's like, well, he's so two-dimensional, but also you see people like this in the news and in media. So, like, there is truth to it. So it's not wholly unbelievable. But then I would also say that the natives of this planet also feel two-dimensional in a way that I don't think is very accurate. But yeah, it was an interesting book to pick up. It's also my first adult title by Ursula K. Le Guin. I don't know if I'll read more. I definitely have to be in a big brain space instead of a pea-sized brain space. And then this morning I also finished Out There Screaming, an anthology of new Black horror edited by Jordan Peele. And, the audiobook was really good on Spotify, of all things. Granted, I only listened to like 4 of them with the audiobook, and I read everything else with my eyeballs. But I read, Lord, can I even remember? An American Fable, I think, is the last one that I talked about, and that one was more historical fiction, so it took place in 1918, about a black man who was a private in the First World War, and has come back to the United States and is really grappling with the dichotomy for the way black people were treated when they were in Europe fighting in the war, and then the way they are treated when they come back home to the U.S. after the war. And I liked it. I'm sorry, that's not more information, but I did like that one. And then Your Happy Place by Terrence Taylor. That one was really sad. That one's about incarceration and prisons as modern day slavery and the loophole to the 13th Amendment. There was like a speculative element to that one, but the root of it was pretty real. And then Hide and Seek by P. Djeli Clark, as predicted, I freaking loved. It was so good. It is about 2 brothers living in their grandfather's house with their mother, who was an addict. And their grandfather was a wizard, and then the way magic is used, it was really interesting. It was really creepy. It was really sad, and I liked it so much. But I mean, no surprises. I just absolutely love P. Djeli Clark's writing. And then the last one, which I think was my favorite, out of the whole bunch was Origin Story by Tochi Yonabuchi, and it was written in play form, like stage play form, and it's these 4 white boys who are having a conversation before their unified theory of whiteness seminar, and it was just excellent. So I'm going to give this a 4.25 overall because I loved, I think maybe like 6 of these, and then liked everything else and only DNF'd 1 story. A great success. I had a great time with it, and I would say this wasn't super scary. The body horror is, not super prevalent in a lot of them, but with the ones where it does show up, it shows up big time. So if that's a thing for you, just, I guess, tread with care, but I would definitely recommend this anthology as a whole. I thought it was very well put together. The way the order the stories are in is very interesting. And I love that Tochi Yonabuchi's is the last one, but I was so mad because I had to wait so long to get to it. It was great. No notes. Big fan. I got a late in the day type of update. My youngest is about to go to bed. My oldest aren't home from rehearsal yet. It's all sort of wacky doodle weirdness today. I didn't teach my class this afternoon because of my husband's work schedule and the twins' rehearsal schedule. And somebody needed to be home with my youngest, and so it's just easier to cancel my class than to try to find. Anyways, this is not book related. We don't care. I finished Under the Smokescreen Sky by A. Deborah Baker, aka Shauna McGuire. This is the final installment in the Up and Under series. I thought this was a lovely, just hold that thought. Okay. All the notifications are coming from the school app. I thought this was a lovely wrap up to this series, and I realized in the course of reading this, and then I went back to look at what ratings I had given previous installments, and I think I rated the first one pretty high, but I haven't rated the subsequent ones as high as the first one, and I ended up giving this a 4. And I think I like the idea of this series maybe more than I like the actual series. I love the writing. I think Shauna McGuire has really lovely things to say about being a person and growing up and fitting into the world, not fitting into the world. I really like all of those things. The actual plot never pulls me in as much as I would like it to. But I thought this ended in a really lovely way. And just the way she phrased the last few paragraphs, it made me want to, not now, but at some point, read all 4 novellas as if they are one big book, instead of reading one, waiting a year, reading the next one, waiting a year, because I think that maybe has contributed to me feeling a little disjointed and not as immersed in these characters and this world as I want to be. So that might be an interesting thing to try. Maybe next year, maybe the year after, we'll see. It might be also fun to reread Middle Game, which I've never done, and then read this whole series in one go. Possibilities. Could be fun. Let's see, what prompt was this fulfilling? The Taurus prompt, read a book with an aesthetically pleasing cover. And then the next prompt is Virgo. So I get a choice. I can either read a high stress, high stakes book or a low stress, low stakes book. And I looked at this last night and then struggled because I just couldn't, I don't really want to do super high stress or high stakes, but it's hard to know just by looking at the books which one you're going to get. So I dithered around for a little bit and I eventually settled on A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent by Marie Brennan. If you watched any of my vlogs over the summer, then you may have seen, oh my gosh, sorry, the school app is just exploding. Nothing important, just like updates and announcements because Thanksgiving is next week, and so there's a lot of stuff going on in between now and then. Anyways, but I read the whole The Rook and the Rose series this summer, and that is by M.A. Carrick, and Marie Brennan is half of M.A. Carrick, and I love that series so much that I really wanted to try both of those authors individually and see if I like them as much separate as I liked them writing together. And I also heard that this is a lot like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies, but this did everything Emily Wilde tried to do better. And I didn't really like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies. I found it boring. And I found a lot of the characters unlikable. So I have a lot of hope for this one. I did end up downloading the audiobook because of course I did. But listen. Kate Redding does the audiobook narration. And Kate Redding also narrates the Sherry Thomas Lady Sherlock series, which is one of my all-time favorite series in the world, and it's a series that I almost exclusively listen to on audiobooks because I love Kate Redding's narration so much. So I don't know, she's like an auto download. If she does the audiobook, I have to listen to it. I don't know what to tell you. Also, it's not die puzzle. It's not Clear Your Shit related, but so I'm not really going to talk about it, but I did pick up volume 4 of Witch Hat Atelier because I am trying. She has the zoomies. I'm trying to make progress on all those series I said I wanted to keep on reading, and this was available at my library when I was there the other day, so I just grabbed it, and now I'm reading it, and I'm a little over halfway through, but it's not Clear Your Shit, so we're not going to talk about it. All right, that's it. Bye. Talk about how the hutch is still in the dining room. All right, I know. I was cleaning that off several vlogs ago, but yes, it is still there. It is still cleaned off. It has not accumulated. Okay. Now it has not accumulated any more clutter. You just need to get it out of the house. Hi, hello. Today is a glorious day because today is the first day off that I've had in all of November where there is nobody in my house for 6 hours. It's the best. I'm so excited. I have Fridays off. That's one of my days off. But the kids have not had school on a Friday all month. And then my other day off is Sunday, and everybody's home on Sunday. So I very much treasure my days to myself, and it's been rough to not have one, but here we are. It's wonderful. I walked my youngest to school this morning. I have coffee. I'm editing this vlog to where I am already. When I was walking home from dropping E off at school, I was listening to the audiobook for Natural History of Dragons. I am at part 2, which is about 90 pages in, and it's just delightful. It's so delightful. I see where the Emily Wilde comparison comes in. I think Isabella has a similar not no nonsense, because she can be not silly, but frivolous. No, not even frivolous. I don't know. She can be carefree in a way that I don't think Emily ever is. But I find Isabella so much more likable than Emily. And yeah, I'm really liking it. I'm also it reminds me a lot of the grown-up version of Calpurnia Tate, which is a middle grade book that my oldest loves. And that's about a girl in Texas at the turn of the 20th century who is like the only daughter out of a lot of boys. I don't remember how many, but it was a lot. And wants to is really interested in Darwin, and Origin of the Species was just recently published, and she wants to read it, and she was interested in nature, and her grandfather really fosters her interest in natural science. And I feel like the first part of this is really Isabella talking about her childhood and meeting her husband and getting married. And I felt like there were a lot of similarities. So I don't know, depending on how this one goes, and like what the contents are for this one, I might just give it to my oldest to read after I'm done, because I feel like there's a lot of crossover appeal. So yeah, it's wonderful. And I love Kate Redding. She is the perfect narrator for this book. That's all I'm reading right now. And it's the last Clear Your Shit prompt for the week. So I hopefully won't fly through this too fast. We have a pretty busy weekend. I have to work like I usually do on Saturday, but my husband's gone pretty much all weekend for a work event, and then my twins have their play performances all weekend. So we got a lot going on, and I volunteered to do ticket sales this evening for the play and then concessions at both performances this weekend, which means I didn't consider just how very many people I was going to see that I know at all of these performances, and the social anxiety and the social exhaustion is already kicking in just thinking about it. It's not my finest moment. Past Emily was much more ambitious in my, I don't know, ability to do things. But anyways, that is hours away, so that's going to be future Emily's problem. Current Emily is going to finish editing what I've got of this vlog so far. I'm probably going to work out, clean the house, read my book, and just enjoy the solitude and the silence. Sunday, which means we have come to the end of week 3 for Clear Your Shit. Eventually I'm going to lose track of what week I'm on, and then we'll be in trouble, but for right now I still remember. And I finished A Natural History of Dragons, a memoir by Lady Trent this morning, and I really liked this. It was so good. So this is written in memoir style, and our narrator is now an elderly woman, and she's a famous dragon historian in this fantasy world, and she is writing to the reader, telling us about her childhood for a little bit, and then her marriage and the first expedition she and her husband went on. And so it was so good. 4.5 stars. I really liked it. There was an unexpected emotional component that I wasn't anticipating, obviously. I would say that the comparisons to Emily Wilde, or comparing Emily Wilde to this, is accurate, but I would also say that I agree that this does what Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies is trying to do, but does it better. I was way more invested in what was happening with the characters and with Emily, and Christmas tree lights are doing something funny on my camera. Just a minute. Let me turn them off. Oh my god, that's so much better. I lose my light, but that's okay. The waving was going to drive me bananas, and probably not super pleasant for you. So, where was I? Anyway, oh yeah. I really liked Isabella, Lady Trent. I really loved her voice and her personality. I had such a good time. I feel like I read it really fast. I just wanted to pick it up all the time. I did bounce back and forth between reading it physically and listening to the audiobook, and I think Kate Redding is so good at narrating for this type of character, this like scientific, what's the word I want? Not emotionally withdrawn, but there's a little bit of a divide between the character's like intellectual brain and then them feeling their feelings. I don't know what the word I want for that is, but I love Kate Redding for that style of
woman that she tends to narrate. I feel like I'm doing a garbage job of explaining that. Anyways, really loved it. So happy I read it. Added it to my series tracker in my reading journal because there's 5 books in the series and I really want to continue and see what else happens to her. And with that, we're going to wrap up this reading vlog. I feel like this was such a good week for my reading. I read 4 books for Clear Your Shit. I genuinely really liked everything that I read, and it's gonna be hard to beat this last week in terms of my reading life. I did finish 4 books. The first one that I finished was Out There Screaming. Well, not the first one finished, but I'm going to go in order of prompts. So this is edited by Jordan Peele. It's an anthology of short stories. I don't know why I'm giving you a recap. I already talked about this in this vlog, but I gave this 4.25 stars, and this fulfilled the Air Collective prompt, which was to read a book with multiple POVs. I also finished The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. I am not rating this one because I just don't know how to rate it. So I'm leaving it unrated, but I feel like even though it's not an enjoyable read, it is definitely a worthwhile read. And this one was for the mini boss prompt, where I had to pick either the shortest book on my TBR or the longest book on my TBR. The next one I finished was Under the Smoke-Strewn Sky by A. Deborah Baker. This is the 4th and final installment in the Up and Under series, and I gave this 4 stars or 3.75. I think, I can't remember. It was somewhere, it was one of those two. And this was for the Taurus prompt, which was to read a book with an aesthetically pleasing cover. And then finally, Natural History of Dragons, which was for the Virgo prompt, which was to read either a low stakes, low stress book or a high stakes, high stress book. And I would say, even though the stakes in this are high, the way it's written, it feels low stress until like there. And then the last bit of it is high stress. So I don't know where this falls in that spectrum. Maybe both. I guess both. That is it for this reading vlog. If you have made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for spending your precious time with me. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of booktubers out there and a lot of ways you can spend your time, and I don't know, I'm very appreciative that you choose to spend it with me for a little bit. If you want to leave a comment but you don't have anything to say, let's do a mountain emoji, and I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye.